All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, depending on which state you are in. And welcome. Welcome to today's session. We are delighted to have you for what promises to be an interesting conversation with a dear brother about community representation, civic leadership, and the power of Muslims and power of individuals and the power of our community in democracy. We come to you today from the land of the Wurundjeri Woi people of the Kulin Nation. We acknowledge them as the traditional owners of this land and the traditional custodians, and we pay our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We're gathered here today because it's an important moment in the political landscape. The Muslim community represents one of Australia's biggest and largest and fastest growing demographic groups. And yet, usually our voices are underrepresented in local government. Yet, today's webinar is designed to change that, to celebrate recent wins, to explore opportunities, and to empower our community to continue making meaningful impact in the local and national agenda. We are privileged to host someone who has embodied this momentum, the newly elected mayor of Maribyrnong Council in Victoria, Councillor Mohammad Semra, who has just made history as Victoria's first Sudanese-born mayor. His election does not just represent a personal achievement, but a watershed moment for the Muslim, the African, and the multicultural leadership in Australia. So before we start, just a quick context of why we're here today. We're here today because Muslim Votes Matter, as an independent grassroots political organization, is dedicated to amplify the political voices and the democratic participation of the Muslim community in Australia. Muslim Votes Matter is not a political party. It does not intend or have fielded any candidates, but it mobilizes, educates, and empowers the Muslim community to become informed, to become engaged, and to make a meaningful and lasting impact in Australian politics. The mission is simple: stronger together. As Muslims, as communities, together we can make a difference, together we can make an impact. And we have seen that in the last federal election, over the past 6 months alone, Muslim Votes Matter has garnered over 1 million views across multiple media platforms. And that just shows how much need and hunger there is in the Muslim community and the wider community. On the other side of this table, we have the councillor, Brother Mohammad Semra. I'm really sorry. Mohammad Semra, who has been elected as the mayor of the city of Maribyrnong in 19th of November, 2025. He's not only the first Sudanese-born mayor, but the first Sudanese Australian mayor in the entire country. His journey to this moment is one of resilience, community commitment, and visionary leadership. While born in Sudan, he arrived in Australia as a refugee in the early 2000s. Grew up in Braybrook, where he benefited from youth organizations. But rather than simply moving forward, Mohammed chose to pay forward by finding the Endeavour Youth Foundation, a youth outreach service that continues to support youth in our communities. His dedication and commitment was recognized earlier this year when he was named as the 2025 Young Victorian of the Year, one of the most prestigious civic honors. And despite being a first-term mayor, elected just last year, his peers recognized his potential and elected him as mayor by a big margin. He made his priorities clear. He wants to revitalize Footscray, strengthen mental health, support the community, improve air quality, securing state and federal funding, pay back to the community, and support this community grow further and further. His leadership personality and philosophy centers around accountability, active listening, trust building, and basically building a collaborating mindset, the one that makes Australia great. Councillor Semra, welcome, congratulations, and thanks again for accepting our invitation today.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an absolute privilege to be here, and I look forward to the conversation. And yeah, it is very timely.
Yep. It is. And I would believe that it is the first interview that you're making as a mayor, hopefully. We have the, or the
It is the second.
second. Okay.
Second.
Still
Okay.
one of the first. That's
First,
great.
exactly.
We would love to hear. So just quick housekeeping and technical rules for the audience. Number one, please send your comments in the chat if you can. If you can, just send it to us, and one of the hosts will respond to you. We encourage your engagement. This is a lively discussion. We have limited some participation options to make this as efficient as possible, but please send your questions and make them respectful, to the point. We will try to address all of them in a timely manner. We will be recording this session, so please just be mindful of that. And if you have any technical issues, just send to our team. So, Councillor, your journey from arriving to Australia, and I love the journeys or the experiences and the stories of first generation Australians who actually make a difference. We always think that people who just come to the country, people who just move to Australia, will just do nothing and just pass by. They will not be participating in anything. You came as a refugee, but from there you became the first Sudanese mayor in the history of Australia. Can you walk us through the key moments in that journey, from arriving as a refugee until now you became a mayor? And what are like the key moments in this journey? What do you believe made a difference in that journey?
Thank you so much for that question. So I am here because of my story, because I owned my story. Coming from Sudan, obviously, as a refugee, I came with my mom and my siblings. And my mom showed immense leadership, immense courage to come to a whole new country, not knowing what to expect, not knowing how she was going to settle, but to say she wants better for her children and she wants us to reach our full potential. And obviously, coming to Australia, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of barriers and a lot of obstacles. And I will share throughout my story, that was a consistent thing. So I feel very lucky to be in this position. And I know I shouldn't use the word lucky, because everything is qadr Allah. And I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason, and everything is written, the good, the bad, and everything in between. You know, growing up, I had a very severe stutter. So every time I would speak, my head would rock and my tongue would come out. It was a debilitating stutter. And when I was in primary school, I wanted to, join the leadership team, but how can I be a leader if I can't even speak properly? And it was something that, was with me up until I was, 15, 16, and coupled with the fact that there was other barriers that were overlaying that. One being racism, one being the language barriers, one being how hard it was for my mom to raise 5 children and also do her best to provide for us. So all of these barriers coupled with one another, and it gave a recipe, the perfect recipe, where people look at it and say, okay, that's not the recipe for success. So it wasn't up until I was in year 10 that I had a teacher at my school say to me, Mohammed, you're very articulate when it comes to your writing. Why don't you join debating? And I laughed at her. I was like, how can I join debating if I can't even speak properly? But she was serious. And through the school, they went and found a speech therapist course for me to enter at La Trobe University. I went there for 2 weeks and I learned how to speak from the very beginning. 8 to 4 p.m. intensive stuff. And it was led by a renowned speech therapist by the name of Susan Block. So I went there, I learned how to speak in the sense of slowing down and all the tools and tricks they teach you when you go to speech therapy. And I had to come back. And before then, I would always get into trouble. I would, get into fights. And a lot of this was because, I used to get bullied. And as a kid, if you were getting bullied, obviously you would fight, etc. So I definitely saw a downturn for me. I wanted to do law, I wanted to do all of these things, but it seemed out of my reach. So after getting the support of speech therapy, I had come back to the school, and it was the very first time in my life where I could advocate for myself when I was in class. I could present in front of the teacher in English. I could order McDonald's by myself and not have to tell my siblings to go for me. But more importantly, I could speak up on the racism that I was experiencing. And off of the confidence of the support I was getting, whether it be from my mum, whether it be from my teacher, I had decided that I understood racism was the issue. I understood it was a concern. There was a shared experience with a lot of people that looked like me, and I wanted to be a part of the solution. Around that same time I came back from speech therapy, there was a very pivotal moment in my life. Me and my friends decided to go to an Apple store at High Point. And we went there to check out the new phones, and we were surrounded by security guards. And they just kept surrounding the table, and I had told them, is there a problem? And they looked at me and said, no, but there's going to be. And I said, what do you mean by that? And they go, you know what we mean. And I had sensed there was a bit of tension. So I had said to my friends, let's just leave and we'll come back later. And as I'm leaving, I knew it for what it was, and that was racism. I told myself, why are we leaving when we belong in that room? And I had decided to come back, and the manager had come without understanding the situation, had said, we're afraid you might steal something. We had got it on camera, uploaded it online, and it went viral. Millions of views. We had Channel 7, Channel 9, international news, the BBC, the New York Times, reach out to us. So I went from having a stutter, not being able to ever advocate for myself and my friends on the racism we were experiencing, whether it be out in the community, going in a train station and ticket inspectors passing everyone and coming to us, whether it be the names I was being called because I'm a Muslim, whether it be being out in the community and the police stopping me and my friends because of mistaken identity, or when I would hand in an essay in class and the staff would go, Mohammed, is this really your work? Did you copy this? So it went from not being able to speak and honor that to now being pushed to the forefront of the conversations happening and advocating for everyone that looked like me when it came to racism. So I think that was a big turning point for me. I began to understand what leadership looks like and what advocacy looks like. And because of that, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, had ordered every Apple Store employee around the world to retrain in customer inclusion and inclusive practice. And so off of the back of the confidence of that, I had joined debating. And I went from seeing a debating team that was all white to previously self-rejecting because of that, to now saying if I can overcome the hurdle of learning how to speak again, then debating isn't that difficult. So I joined debating. 3 months down the track, our entire debate team was now African.
Allah.
And we went undefeated for the first time in our school's history. And a year later, in year 11, I decided to go for the school leadership team, and I had the same issue. No one there looked like me. And I joined leadership team, became school captain, and I remember the first day of year 12, we had so this was Melbourne College, down in the west here. And I had gone to the first meeting of our leadership team, and I had seen that there were some Somali kids that had come, some Muslim kids that had come and to sign up to join. And I spoke to a year 7 girl. She was hijabi, and I was like, thank you so much for coming here. It's great to see you. And, essentially I was like to her, what brought you here? And then she goes, like, I saw you and I thought I'll come try it as well. So I share my story because all of these paths played a pivotal role for me, right? Whether it be my mum and the leadership that she showed and the values that she instilled because of all the work that she had put to bring us to where we are. And also, whether it be my English teacher that had identified I had an issue and went to find me the service, whether it be me taking self-leadership and identifying, let me take a step and not self-reject and understand that there are other people that might be impacted because of that. and understanding that leadership is a bottom-up approach, and seeing what a couple of 15-year-old boys were able to do and change Apple forever. So all of these things kind of, was a reminder that as long as you are willing to put your hands up, try something new, and back yourself, then other people will see that, and hopefully they will join and support. But more importantly, it was understanding that there are people that want to support you out there, and you just gotta ask. A lot of the times you won't get no. You will receive either the support you need or get pointed in the right direction. I know I've gone in a whole storytelling mode, but I think all of these parts played a pivotal moment for me and have shaped
No,
my leadership.
on the contrary, I am very impressed by this story, and I heard you talking about portions of that story in different discussions. And I really wanted you to tell the whole story without interruption, because the one thing that maybe the system does not fully capture is these individual stories, how our journeys as individuals make who we are, and how all of these hurdles and these challenges and these situations, and more importantly, as you mentioned, the people around us who help us through that journey make us who we are. So on the contrary, thank you for sharing that beautiful story about how you became who you are today. And I think that that's going to be a very nice bridge onto the next question, which is, when you look at your journey, the most impressive part for me is you never walked away from who you are. I don't think that you had the chance with the racism to walk away from who you are anyway. Always people will project you and put you in a certain box. But you haven't tried, and you didn't try to change that. You didn't try to say, I'm not. On the contrary, you always said, yes, I am. And you need to change. So when you went to the Apple store and they looked at you and they had their silly looks, you did not try to say, no, I'm not like the others. But you said, no, you as Apple need to change because you assumed the worst in me. It's your fault, not my fault. So I think my question in this point is, how important is preserving who you are as you go in this journey in politics, in community engagement, in the Australian community at wide? How important it is for you to keep who you are and preserve that and present it in your authentic way, instead of just trying to adapt and melt and confirm basically to other people's standard?
Yeah, it's a very important question. Being authentic to myself, I believe, is the most important thing, and something that I guard near and dear. We need to understand that the systems out there, they're not built for us. When you look at education, when you look at politics, a lot of these systems want you to conform, but in doing so, we lose who we are. And if you lose who you are, it's not a sustainable way to move forward, right? And that's how I look at anything I do. I want a consistent way to operate, so then I can always be myself, and in being myself, I'm the best version of myself. When I put my hands up for local council, I was getting advised, obviously I'm visibly African, I'm visibly Muslim by my name, and I'm a young person. That's a trifecta of the three biggest barriers in
Exactly. If
politics.
everyone would look at that and say, he will not win, he will not be elected. And you're not also backed by a big party, so that's not even helping you in any way.
And I'm independent. Yeah, like the recipe was all there. I got ridden off so many times because of that. So understanding that the odds were stacked against me, I didn't want to add another barrier, another obstacle of changing who I was. Because if I did get in there, how long would I be able to pretend to be someone I'm not? And that was very important to me. So I was being advised, Mohammed, you should change your name. Right? You should change your name to Michael, to Mark, or whatever. Because there are, politicians out there that do consider a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
How am I going to be perceived? What's this going to look like? But that was not on the table for me.
I personally find it quite silly. Like, if you change your name, okay, can you change your skin? So what else will I change? Where I live, how do I speak, etc. Where does it end? And is there like a textbook model of who's gonna win? I think I really like that you stayed who you are. You did not change a single thing in everything you've done before the election until you have been selected. And the other part is you showed that it works. And not only works as a council who just sit on the back benches and stay quiet, but actually you can aim to be a mayor and you can do it. It is an important part of the journey. Um, did you ever see yourself becoming a mayor 2 years ago?
Nah, I'll be honest. I didn't think I was even going to run for council because, to give you all context, I ran back in 2020.
Okay.
And I ran in 2020 during COVID. And around that time, I didn't know much about council. I didn't even know who my councillors were. I had put my hands up for some random community leadership program in Melbourne that I found in my email box. And I said, you know what, I'm thinking about starting a organization, Endeavour Youth, and possibly if I join this, I can gain some skills. So I joined, and someone that was facilitating the workshop was like, council elections are coming up next year in 2020. And I was like, okay, what do you need to do to run for council? All they said was you need to be over 18 and you need to have lived in the area for more than 3 months. I was like, you don't need anything else. There isn't, no, that's all you need. I was like, okay, I took both of those boxes. In sitting with the thought of putting my hands up, I outweighed kind of the advantages and disadvantages. And I said, worst case scenario, I don't get it, but I inspire other people to either vote or get involved and begin to change the narrative that we are involved and we do want to be a part of the decision making table, because there's a lack of representation when it comes to young people, when it comes to Muslims, when it comes to multicultural communities. If you look at Australia more broadly, almost 50%, if not more than 50% of people in this country either have a parent that is born overseas or speaks another language, or they themselves are born overseas or speak another language. So this is modern day Australia. It's multicultural, it's multi-faith, and it's diverse in every sense of the way. And but that's not represented. That's not represented in our decision-making spaces across all sectors. And if we don't play our part in that now, then we're only going to exacerbate the environment and the situation for our kids in
When
the
you ran in
future.
2020 and you didn't win at that time, how did it feel?
That's a good question, because a lot of the times no one talks about the loss,
Yeah.
right? They don't talk about the wins. It was at the time a very public rejection. It's your community saying this isn't for you, or necessarily we don't want you to lead, right? That's how I perceived it at the time. And I said, you know what? I tried. I didn't get it. It is what it is. And to be completely honest with you, I wasn't going to run again. And it wasn't until I started Endeavour Youth Australia, and I over the past 3 years, I've been able to work with thousands, more than 10,000 students across our state, going to the different schools and speaking to the kids and seeing a lot of the systemic issues that are faced by our students and our young people. And I always go to schools and I tell students, don't self-reject, put your hands up for leadership, bounce back, be resilient, and all that stuff. So for me, a lot of it was trying to practice what I preach. And sometimes when things don't go our way, we are quick to swipe it, push it under the rug, or not address it, or not even go back to it. But I'm a big believer that obviously, it's not rejection, it's redirection. If I had gotten elected in 2020, I would not have started Endeavour Youth Australia. That's how I look at it. And
Amazing.
obviously, obviously we're Muslims and we understand that, God doesn't give anyone a burden that they can.
I think we lost the mayor.
You're Um,
Sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah, I can. I think we had something. Everything got stuck. Okay. So everyone can hear me now. Can you hear the councillor? Can you hear the mayor?
yeah, if everyone can hear me,
Yep. Okay.
that's fine. To progress what I was saying, God doesn't give a person a burden that they cannot handle. And I think it was important for me to internalize that feeling in getting and obviously praying.
Brother Muhammad, your voice is robotic for some reason. No, still the same. So I think even your story was very moving to the point where your connection could not handle it. But I really wanted to touch on that last point before your voice started to break, which is we as Muslims, we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us challenges, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also will not give us more than what we can handle. I think it's an important point from a spiritual point of view that our faith and its impact have maybe a personal influence more than anything on how we conduct our lives and how we work. Oh, so now my voice is breaking. Are you able to hear me now? Okay. So just on that, in 60 seconds before we move to the next section, how important is your faith, your background, your community is to you as a counselor, as someone who is now involved in the public eye? I thought that we have unmuted you, but let me try again. Can you unmute now?
Yes.
Yep.
Can you just ask that last question one more time, please?
How important is your faith, your background, your heritage, your community is to you as a counselor and as mayor?
Yep. It's super important to me. And above all else, I always say, I am because we are. I understand that I'm only here because of my community. I'm only here because of the values and the morals and the support that I received, not only from my community, but my connection to my faith and my connection to my culture. It's the only thing that's allowed me to stay consistent in how I operate, whether it be from a values perspective. And obviously, sometimes you're not always going to get things right, and you're sometimes going to make mistakes. But it's about understanding that when a mistake happens or failure does occur, it's not saying why me, and moving to how can I grow and how can I learn from this. And sometimes I think as a community, we need to be able to collaborate better. We need to support each other, because sometimes, right, when I think what happens in the political space is because there isn't a lot of us there and we haven't seen ourselves in that position, it becomes a route that is impossible. So when others might want to explore a new space, we might unknowingly, because of our own perspectives and how we view the world, might unintentionally deter or dissuade them from stepping up or doing certain things. And I think support begins in the process as opposed to in the end. And it is imperative now more than ever that we are in these decision-making spaces, because a lot of the decisions that are made are going to impact our community, not only in the short term, but in the long term as well. And now being a councillor and also mayor, I will be in certain discussions and conversations taking place, and it is on me or others in similar positions to uplift certain voices that haven't been heard.
As a mayor, Maribyrnong is a very diverse area, and Footscray is actually one of the most fascinating places in Victoria. The diversity, the different people that you meet all over the place is actually, I think, what Australia is about. As you mentioned, we come from different lands, we come from different experiences, and Footscray is one of these melting pots in Victoria. As a mayor, what are your plans in the next year? I think you are elected for a year or two. So what are your plans during your tenure as a mayor in Maribyrnong Council?
Yeah. Melbourne is a very interesting position right now. There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of great things happening. And for me, it's about continuing the great work we've already started as a council, but also continuing. And next year is a state election. So it's about being consistent and being able to articulate at a very high level our priority areas, working with community to bring them with us on the journey of that process,
Yep.
and ensuring that our consultation is one that is accessible. Our consultation is one that meets community where they're at and is tailored in our approach to it. And we have to understand that certain communities have better capacity. They may be more established.
Yep.
And our consultation needs to reflect that and meet people where they're at. So that's one thing that's important to me. Another thing is obviously Maribyrnong is, like you said, rightfully so, is a very diverse place. And Footscray in particular is a place where a lot of cultures meet. And we want to ensure that we are working towards a future Footscray, and we plan and we work with our partners to ensure the very best outcomes for not only the traders, but visitors. We want to ensure that it's safe. We want to ensure that people that are experiencing acute mental health issues get the support they need.
I think Footscray is one of the areas which can really thrive in Melbourne if it found the right support from state, because this is the other part which I would like you to talk about a little bit, that council is still an important role. Many times it is being relegated into roads and rubbish, but in reality it has more responsibility than that. And at the same time, it relies on the state government in many things. So you need to collaborate with the state, you need to collaborate with the federal government at some stage. How important is to understand all of this complexity in the political landscape for some place like Footscray to actually thrive, not just be safe, but also become a hub in Victoria.
Yeah, super important. And council, people don't know, council do a lot. And we're only doing more and more as state continue to shift some responsibility onto us. You know, a lot of like the services, you know, we do maternal health, mothers, you know, a lot of the times like run programs for young people. We take care of a lot of the roads, a lot of the footpaths, and
you have things like
we
libraries,
do elderly
events.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's so much, right? I can go on an hour about the work that council does, but a lot of it requires state and federal partnership, and it requires them to come to the table. And I think over the next year, a big thing for me is ensuring that we're having the right conversations and we are pushing for more support from state government,
And you
because a
mentioned
lot of things cost
about
money.
And you mentioned something about how these systems effectively are not built with us in mind. What I would like to ask you about is, with that point, how do you navigate these spaces when it's not built for us? But also in many cases, you need to meet with people. You need to go and talk to people who might be, they call it politically, on the other side of the aisle, but people who you might be totally in total disagreement with, people you might see at some stages repulsive or annoying or disrespectful, but because you are where you are, you have to meet with them. How difficult maybe, but also how do you navigate that?
Yeah. So that was a big reason in me running as an independent, because as an independent, I only answer to my community and I'm only accountable to those that obviously trusted me with their vote. In joining a party, it's very strict sometimes, where you have to vote according to party lines, and a lot of the times established brands have policies that you are expected to promote. So running as an independent gives me a lot more freedom in obviously what I attend, what I say, etc., and what I report. I'm a big believer that any conversation can be had, any conversation with anyone, and but it needs to be obviously done in a respectful way. And obviously, I'm in an interesting position on my council. I'm the only independent in a council with 3 Greens and 3 Labour, and sometimes we're not going to get along, and sometimes what I stand for and what someone else stands for might not meet. But obviously, to get the best outcomes and to get to the bottom of things, those conversations need to take place. And it could even be that we agree to disagree. All right. So I'm a big believer that every conversation can be had, but I think something that is paramount is understanding your morals and understanding your values. And one thing, advice that I got, that I have taken on board when it comes to politics, is that you keep your values and you keep your morals consistent, and and people can see it for what it is. You can't make everybody happy, and I understand that very, very well. Some people are going to be upset, other people are going to be happy. But if I can walk away in 4 years from now and say that as my time as a councillor, I have, I am still the same person. I still have the same morals. I still have the same values. I have my community with me on this journey, and I done a lot of things that I promised.
Your voice has started to break again. I might ask you to mute and unmute. Maybe that would help.
Yep. Is that better?
Can you talk a bit?
Can you hear me now? Is it still breaking up?
Still breaking. It's a bit strange how this is happening. It's the last bit that started totally failed. But I get your point, and I think it's an important point for Muslims overall, but anyone who is involved in the public sphere, that you need to understand, or people need to understand, that you will meet and you will do things that have to be done, but at the same time, while keeping the community, the people who matter, which is your constituents, people who voted for you, and people who support you, at the forefront in these discussions. We all go through these discussions on day-to-day basis, but I think one point that really helps. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I touch on something real quick? Can you hear me better, or?
I can hear you, but for some reason the voice keeps having some disconnections. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same problem with you. So I think maybe try muting yourself and see if that
Sure.
is the voice better or still breaking up. Okay. So the understanding, I am now in public office. I understand I belong to different communities, right? African community, the Islamic community as well. And so I think now I am more intentional about conversations that I have or the places I'm at, right? Because I understand that. And, before I was in public office, maybe that wasn't front in mind. But yeah, it's very important to me that, you know, that my community can look at me and say, Mohammed is an inspiration and he is working for us and with us. And whether that be my constituents, whether that be, you know, the African community or Muslim brothers and sisters.
Thank you, Councillor. We gather here today under MVM with the main question is how to be a councillor. How to be a councillor. If you're looking at one of the youth, one of the thousands of youth that you have met over the last 3 years, and I think some of them are asking now, if Brother Muhammad can do it, why can't I? I want to do it. If you're looking at someone who's 18, 20, or even 30 and 40, I think there is no age limit in getting involved. Even if someone's old and want to be involved, I think it's really actually good. What is your message to the Muslim community who want to be involved in politics? The things that they need to learn about, the things that they need to address. What is your advice to them about politics, about even campaigning, about getting into council, or even getting into community service in general?
Fundamentally, you need to be a part of your community. So put your hands up for opportunity locally. So for example, I was involved in the Melbourne Youth Advisory Committee before I was a councillor. It is a place where I went to primary school in, went to high school in. People know me. I've been in the community space, you know, for a while. But the one thing that I think won me the election was I door knocked a large percentage of my ward. I was out in front of IGA, I was out in front of the LD, handing out my flyers, speaking with people, getting to know what are the issues of the community. Because you have to understand, you might think you know what's good for the community because you lived there and through your own experiences. But understand, once you get elected, you're no longer one person, right? And people want to say the person that we elected knows the issues, knows the concerns, and is with us and for us. So those conversations with a lot of the residents that I was having really shaped my campaign. So I can have the confidence to say a lot of what I am speaking on and a lot of what I'm advocating on is genuinely what the community feels. So that's very, very, very important. I cannot stress enough. But in terms of, are you ready to put your hands up? I will say anyone that wants to try something new, right, and wants to have a bit of fun campaigning, put your hands up. Right? In 2020, there was no negatives for me running. I cannot name a single negative aspect of me putting my hands up in 2020. It was all positive. I got to meet new people. I, increased my own knowledge about my area. I built my communication skills. I networked, and it really set me up for success. So the only thing that will be stopping you is fear of rejection. And like I said, it's never really rejection, it's redirection.
Yeah, that's usually what gets people off. They're afraid, what if this happens, and then what people will think about me, what my colleagues will think about me, I'm going to lose some money while I'm campaigning, I'm going to waste time. But I think it's important that you put all of this into perspective. As you mentioned, you don't really lose anything. If you go and door knock, you have learned more about your community, the people who are living next to you. If you wait and listen to people, you will understand challenges that you have never thought about. And like what you mentioned before, if it was not for your loss in 2020, you will not start something else, and you will not meet thousands and thousands of the young people in Victoria that will get you where you are today, that will help you. So yeah, it's a really important lesson. I think it's always powerful to hear it from someone who went through that experience. The last question for me before we open, and I think we have a few questions. In 1 minute, what are your plans? And you can be as descriptive or as brief. will we see you someday beyond council, or are you taking it one step at a time?
Ask the same question a million times since becoming a councillor, and it is an important question. There's definitely a pathway there, but right now I wouldn't say it's crucial. I am more concerned about getting the best outcomes for Melbourne and serving my local community now. And if that ever becomes something that makes sense and it is good for me, and I can genuinely say that I can do it and still be Mohammad Semra, then that can be a conversation that I will definitely have. And hopefully we'll see where it goes. But right now, I'm very, very much committed to, I understand it comes with a lot of responsibility being mayor and a lot of accountability. And I'm more so excited than nervous because there's a lot of good people out there that are willing to support. And we have a great group of councillors. Melbourne is in a very healthy position. And so, yeah, I'm just looking forward to the
I think a
opportunity
lot of people
to
don't
serve.
know that councillors actually work part-time, but as a mayor, you are full-time on the council. You need to dedicate your time, your effort, everything for the council, and that put more pressure on you. So, yeah, it really needs all of your focus, and inshallah, you can make big achievements in Maribyrnong Council, and we can always in the future look back and say, this is what Brother Muhammad did for the council. This is his footprint, inshallah.
Inshallah, bismillah.
Inshallah. I think we have one question from Brother Jazir. You are slightly breaking up, but I can hear you just fine. I'm not sure about the audience. Jazir, maybe you have a question? But
can you hear me, Mohammed?
All right. I can make out what you're saying. If it's that bad for me,
all right. I'll ask my question. You are breaking up a little bit. Hopefully, it'll clear up when I'm finished with the question. So my question to you is, as you know, Mohammed, 15th of March is going to be the United Nations International Day to Combat Islamophobia, and this was formally recognised by the Victorian government earlier this year. As a mayor and a youth leader, what advice do you have for councils to ensure that they can genuinely recognise this date as an opportunity to educate staff or empower community to combat Islamophobia?
I remember that day vividly because it was the same day as our council meeting, and if I am correct, it was Ramadan, wasn't it?
Yes.
And yep, so at that council meeting, I spoke about what Ramadan is in council meeting to the community, and I spoke about the importance of council playing its part to support the Muslim community, which make up 3,000 people in Melbourne, and I had indicated that it was important that the government recognise this day formally, and as a council, being the mayor, I can speak on behalf of council. So as a council, I think it's important that we acknowledge Islamophobia as a problem, and it's an issue that is outstanding, and we are committed in any way to support our Muslim community, and I look forward to the 15th of March. We will be, sharing and acknowledging the day, and that could be an education piece for the community.
So it's quite hard. Sorry, Mohammed, it is quite hard. It's very choppy.
It'll be a good opportunity to educate the community. It'll be a very good opportunity to educate the community. And also, as mayor, I do meet frequently with other mayors from different municipalities. And as a Muslim, it is obviously important for me that our Muslim community feels welcome, that they feel safe, not only just in Melbourne, but across Melbourne, Victoria, and even Australia. So definitely committed to supporting in any way an education piece to community, to the broader community, about the impacts of Islamophobia, the experiences, the lived experiences of people that have faced it. Right. In getting elected, there's been some very, very, racist comments that I've been seeing, in different pages, and a lot of them are quick to, I've experienced a lot of Islamophobia over the past week, and I can only imagine what other people might be experiencing. So it is very timely, and I think it's not something that needs to wait for a specific day. It is something that we can continually work together and collaborate on to ensure that as a Muslim community,
Inshallah.
we feel more heard and safe.
No, inshallah, I think it's a good initiative. The Imam Council in Victoria last year did a good campaign, and we were talking about that while you dropped. And it's part of the broader awareness that need to happen in the community overall. It's not an event for the Muslims, it's actually an event for the non-Muslims who need to know and recognize how Islamophobia runs sometimes really deep, to the point where they don't even recognize it. We need to bring it up, put it in the front, and show them that this is what you need to confront and this is what you need to address. So yeah, working and supporting councils in this work is going to be absolutely important. Thanks, Jazir, for your question. There was another question on the chat from Brother Hanif. What help or support are you looking from the community to make sure you can be as successful as a mayor?
That's an interesting question. Council is very, very well resourced. There's a big team, so that side of things is all good. But I think what the community can do to support me would be to support, I guess, more of our young people understand and begin to change the narrative. So I think that's the onus that falls on all of us to start changing the narrative where politics is concerned, where decision making is concerned, and be more intentional about how do we set up each other for success and how do we bring our young people with us on that journey. And there's a lot of good work happening, a lot of good work happening, and you all are case in point. And I think more people need to be made aware of the good work that is happening. And if there's anything I can do, please reach out. I'm always reachable by email.
Absolutely, I think
by phone.
It goes back, I think, where we started this discussion, and I know that we ran over time, and really thanks for your time. I'm sure that you are busy and you are.
Yeah, I apologize for all the technical difficulties on my part.
It is part of the challenges we have to go. Muslim Votes Matter is not a funded organization, and you as a councillor have lots of things happening, and we do. This is part of the challenges we go through. We don't really have fancy studios that we can go to or fancy stages, and we will have venues hosting us. We do what we can with the resources we have. So the fact that you gave us this time is absolutely admirable, and really thanks for being available to us. Before we close, and maybe I lost my train of thought here for a second, but I wanted to say that as community, I feel it's important to understand that we don't only support by just being there, but also by stepping up. We don't need, while your role is important, we don't need Mohammad Semra always in the seat or being a mayor. We need more Mohammad Semras in the community, talking to the youth, enabling them, giving them the chance, and sometimes the support to become something, not necessarily a council, but to be more involved. I think that's a very important message, and the more avenues we create, definitely helps.
And to add to that point, political capital isn't just being in a seat. Like you said, there are other ways where the community can be influential and can have an impact on decision making. It is about accessing more of the consultation that's made available, right? So when the government puts out a consultation on a specific policy, on a specific new bill, or whatever it might be, we need to share that information and get more, people that look like us, from our faith, from our culture, to give their say, right? So we can start shaping a lot of that decision making if we are made aware of the processes. So I think it's important that we educate the community, and they are made aware of all the tools for them to have their voice heard. And also, there's a lot of community leaders in our community. I think the more that we collaborate, our voices are louder. And I will do everything that I can, obviously, to push for that narrative to change, and speak with either MPs about Islamophobia, and to use my own personal experience to push it to the forefront. But everyone has a role to play. No matter how small you think your part is or how large it is, it's all equally important.
Absolutely. There was a question in the chat. I think you answered that before, but most likely your voice was robotic, unfortunately, at the time. Is there any plans to run for federal election or federal politics? I think you answered that, but if you want to give a very brief answer, just for Brother Ahmad.
Yeah, potentially, if everything makes sense, and I can keep Mohammad Semra, if I can keep, it's not the preferred right now. I am focused on getting the best outcomes from that, but potentially, it is right now. I am to
So, Ahmad, I think I'm hearing that okay. But in case my voice is clearer, what the mayor is saying, that it is a pathway. It is something that can happen in the future, but his focus now is on being a mayor, serving as a councillor, and serving the community of Maribyrnong. But it can be a pathway in the future if he can preserve and maintain his authentic self and represent his views in the best way possible. Is that capturing the essence of what your position is, Councillor? Okay. So, look, again, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the very thoughtful, the very inspirational story in the beginning. And it was a really, really big pleasure for us to have you as a guest in this webinar. You being elected as a mayor isn't just an achievement for you, but it is an inspirational story and a statement, I think, above all, that our community can and will represent and can be involved, and we are able to do things. We can be in this community as we are, standing for what we believe, and contribute to Australia and contribute to this community, to its betterment, and to strengthen it even further. So thanks again for your time, and thanks for being our guest in MVM webinars. To everyone who joined us today, thank you so much, and thanks for holding with us throughout all of these technical issues. We will try to figure out a way to make it better and try to address these issues in the future. But it was a pleasure having you here, and thanks for the questions. This is part of a series of webinars that MVM is running. We will have another webinar, hopefully at the other end of the year, where we keep the theme of engaging the youth, engaging the community, and how we can increase that engagement and make it even better. You can always follow us on our social media, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter to some stage, but you know where to find us. If you have any ideas, if you have any questions about future webinars or things that we should do as MVM, or even want to have a discussion with us, email us at mvmeducationteam@gmail.com, or shoot us a message on any one of these social media platforms, and we're more than happy to have that discussion. Stay connected with us, stay connected with your local politics, as the mayor mentioned. Be involved, be educated, and be impactful. and inshallah, we will do everything to the betterment of our communities, the Muslim community, and our countries, inshallah. Thank you all so much. Have a nice evening and have a good night. Assalamu alaikum.